RUIN, everything you need to know in less than 15 minutes. The main questions we'll be answering today. What does the story of the DLC actually mean? What happened to the animatronics? How do the main game's endings lead to what happens in the DLC? Which hints and Easter eggs reveal the gameplay beforehand? What is the mimic and why is it so aggressive? And which is the real ending of Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach RUIN? Watch until the end to make sure you're properly informed about the true story of the Pizzaplex. Go! In the RUIN DLC, you start off in a demolished Pizzaplex thanks to the work of Glamrock Freddy and Gregory in the main game. You play as Cassie, a really close friend of Gregory, and explore the mysteries of the ruined Pizzaplex, but this time all alone. You obtain Vanny's security mask, encounter broken animatronics, breach all the security nodes and meet your fatal end with the aggressive mimic. Or do you? The animatronics. Monty is the first animatronic you can see in the DLC. The main thing we can say about him, he rushed it and he got what he deserved. In the Monty kart ride, you can see how Bonnie hands over his guitar to Monty in a friendly way. Roxy styles the hell out of Monty and he becomes the new superstar. Guess what? This is not the way things happened. Monty actually ripped open Bonnie's chest with his claws and split his legs apart from his body. The only real thing the cardboard animatronics show is that Freddy is out of the spotlight. What Monty feels is what I would describe as second-hand jealousy. Monty is actually not mad at Bonnie, but Freddy for being in the spotlight. That's why he took the very thing Freddy loved the most, his pal Bonnie. Glamrock Bonnie finally makes his first appearance in RUIN, but only in a hidden way. To get the first look at Glamrock Bonnie, who is completely broken down, you need to deactivate all of the floor signs and then go to Bonnie Bowl, which doesn't 100% work yet since a lot of YouTubers struggled with finding all of the signs. There has to be a special relationship between the signs and Bonnie, since he's using them as a call for help all the way throughout both games, and we weren't aware of it all this time. Bonnie honestly lies down there surrounded by the wet floor signs like it's a devil's ritual. Karma strikes as Monty loses his legs in the main game. These are stored in a trash pile in the AR world next to a wet floor sign, which is obviously another hint towards the Monty and Bonnie beef. The Gator also loses the rest of his casing somewhere in the time between Security Breach and RUIN. MXES is a security system that looks like an augmented reality version of Glitch Trap, which possessed Vanny in the main game. This security rabbit is a completely different entity than Glitch Trap. Its job is to distract the player and hold them off from breaching the nodes by causing static vision. If the player gets too close for too long, it will summon the nearest animatronic to unalive the player. The endoskeletons are summoned by MXES when there's no other animatronic near. Else they play the same look away, I move, stare, I can't move game with you. Glamrock Chica is even more broken down, crazy as always, shows typical NPC behavior, which means no empathy at all, and carries this weird trash bag with her now. The conveyor belt in the bakery gets reactivated by Cassie, and the evil giant cupcake pushes you off from it. This leads up to the weird encounter with Chica. The only reason why she's active is because she fell from the conveyor belt into a broken charging station and got reactivated by leaking battery acid. The Sun and Moon animatronic is really aggressive at first, but then their sunny side shines through and tells us they need help and that they need to be whole. Cassie can only achieve that by rebooting them with the fast wrench. You as the player need to freeze them in place with light by turning on 2 generators. After that they are called Eclipse, and they even say thank you after they gently throw you out of the daycare. The mentally unstable state is spoiled right at the start with the Moon plushie on a bench facing the floor. If you are missing Glamrock Freddy, he will be covered later when I explain the disassembled ending, so stay tuned. Roxanne Wolf is not that bad, since she has, just like Freddy, at least chosen a kid that is special to her. Cassie. Roxy has also lost her plastic casing, but at least she hasn't lost her mind as much as Monty did, who sounds like an ape dog thing all the way through both games. She can partially escape the hacked state all animatronics are in, else they would work as intended and wouldn't be as aggressive. The Candy Cadet makes a surprising appearance right before the end. It spoils exactly what the mimic does right after by telling a story. The cadet describes how the mother locked the monster away, but the monster learned the lullaby she sang for her son that led to him opening the door. The lullaby is Gregory's voice, and the boy describes Cassie. The monster, who is the mimic, was locked under the Roxy Raceway with Gregory's help by the mother, who is Vanessa, so it cannot escape. Best animatronic for last, the Mimic. You can find out all the core information about this endoskeleton by reading the tales from the Pizzaplex. Rumors say that it was built in the 1980s by an engineer called Edwin Murray. He built this robot for his 4-year-old son so he would be entertained while Edwin was working in his factory. That means this robot was originally made for good. Unfortunately, his son died in a car accident, which led to him beating and brutally destroying the Mimic because he was so mad about what's happened. Edwin abandoned the factory with the Mimic still inside. However, it does survive Edwin's rampage. As its name says, the Mimic was built to imitate behavior that it sees because it has its own AI. Fazbear Entertainment wanted to know what happened to Edwin's wonderful animatronics, so they sent a couple of workers to investigate down there. The Mimic hides in one of the costumes you see in the other ending of Ruin to ambush them efficiently. The copying of Edwin's behavior leads to the tragic deaths of these workers. During the construction of the Pizzaplex, the FNAF 6 location has been there the whole time. They wanted to make this a museum and thus a new attraction for visitors. Fazbear Entertainment decides to send workers down there to clean the place up, and also some animatronics. Guess which one was amongst them? One of the workers programmed the Mimic to remove all the excess parts, but the workers didn't know the Mimic would tear their limbs off as well after working as intended. After that happens, the site is sealed off completely. A group of teenagers that found their way to the pizzeria simulator through a vent were killed by the Mimic in different ways as well. The Mimic intercepts a signal of a radio the teens find, and it pretends to be someone that needs help. This detail is very important since the Mimic does the exact same to Cassie, pretending to be Gregory who needs help. The teens also find notes that say it was originally programmed to watch every show routine and learn from them in order to save the coding experts a lot of time. It didn't work as intended since it started mimicking people as well, instead of just the animatronics. Remember, these are pure facts that are stated in the book. These facts explain the happenings in the game. Gregory wasn't in the building the whole time. The Mimic tries to imitate Gregory perfectly by reusing voice lines from the main game. This fails terribly as the DLC slowly comes to an end. The Mimic runs out of suitable voice lines to lure Cassie, and the voice becomes glitchy. An example of the Mimic reusing voice lines is, "The stupid door won't open." Some of the endings of the main game may seem pointless, but they all contain valuable information that is required to piece together what has actually happened. The main game's endings. Bad or runaway ending. Gregory decides to leave the Pizzaplex and hides in a cardboard box, covering himself with the missing children newspaper since he's homeless. It all ends with Vanny tracking him down and probably taking his life. This ending makes by far the least sense for what the DLC story is like. Escape or van ending. Gregory and Glamrock Freddy drive off in a company van, and we find out that Freddy can still be recharged by additional power sources outside of the Pizzaplex. Afton or burn trap ending. Gregory and Freddy proceed with a one-way trip down into the dark. The player doesn't know that down there is Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator, aka FNAF 6. After the boss fights, where Burn Trap tries to take control over Freddy, the building collapses and Glamrock Freddy and Gregory make their way out as fast as possible as Burn Trap gets annihilated by the angry blob. But what is the blob and where is it now? The blob, officially called Tangle, is a mentally unstable mess with Funtime Freddy's face that has multiple souls inside who are fighting each other for who is in control. We all thought that the blob contains the souls of FNAF 6, but they are actually the souls of the workers and teenagers that were killed by the Mimic. The blob is part of the Burn Trap ending, which is not canon. Still, it is there as an Easter egg in the DLC when walking down the first stairway. Steelwool did this to show the blob is still canon and separated from the Afton ending. I'm 1000% confident we will see the blob in the future game because the fight between the Mimic and the blob must go on. Unmasked or fire ending. Freddy burns down the Pizzaplex through the lighter in his finger. As they try to escape, Vanny grabs Gregory to stop him, but Freddy throws himself off the roof with Vanny. Both lie down there dead, but Gregory gets the chance to unmask Vanny. And yes, it is indeed Vanessa. Disassembled ending. Gregory and Freddy plan to sneak up on Vanny through the Fazo Blast. This plan fails and Freddy gets destroyed by Vanny's health bots, but he is still able to communicate to Gregory that he should get up to the Fazo Blast booth in order to turn the health bots against her. Now, what has actually happened to Glamrock Freddy? In the beginning of Ruin, you see a security bot that crashed into the cardboard that shows Freddy, Chica, and Roxy. The bot specifically destroyed the part where Freddy is, hinting towards the headless version you see later in Ruin. The decapitation of the animatronics occurs in both games. In the main game, the driver assistant drops his head. In the DLC, the Freddy statue is decapitated and there are bot heads lying on the floor in Chica's rotting kitchen. After Vanny has been torn apart, in the disassembled ending, you can even see a comic of withered Glamrock Freddy with a ripped open stomach, which closely resembles the stomach of the Headless Freddy that tries to hunt us down in the DLC. Why is this ending not canon then, you might ask? The Headless Freddy in Ruin is labeled with prototype prototype on the bottom of his foot, which Freddy from the main game is not. But this is no proof, since Cassie finds the broken down Freddy in the exact same spot where he was left after the ending. Weirdly enough, the prototype label was added after the DLC trailer was released. The real reason is that Vanessa was present in a good way. She and Gregory worked together to imprison the Mimic. She would not have been down there if she got disassembled in her Vanny costume before that. In the comic of this ending, you can also see that Freddy still has his head, so this ending is definitely not the true one. If this ending seemed pretty close, then what is the truth? Correct, the Princess Quest ending. You have to complete all 3 Princess Quest arcade games to get this ending. Here's the evidence that this is the true ending. All of the comics that we collect in Ruin are from all the other endings except Princess Quest. Steel Wool Studios did that to show that this is the only canon ending. When you go into Vanny's hideout, you see the tipped over arcade machine with the iconic golden sword from Princess Quest impaled into it. That means Glitchtrap has been defeated. It's over. The virus is no more. Before this ending, the cutscene with the disassembly actually does happen. Gregory saves Vanessa, the bots return from the evil into a normal state, and Vanessa drops her Vanny mask. This would explain exactly why the map bot gets replaced by the mask bot that hands out the Vanny security mask. In the DLC, you use this mask to deactivate the security nodes. Gregory takes a bag with him. And guess what's inside? Exactly, Freddy's head. He was able to take it with him in time and get away from this cruel place without being harmed. Then you see Vanessa and Gregory peacefully sitting on a hill with Freddy's head between them. The Burn Trap ending that was believed to be canon for a while is not. Burn Trap never happened. The Mimic wanted to turn into Burn Trap with the help of Vanessa, since he was mimicking Afton's behavior. Fortunately, Gregory managed to save Vanessa, and if we get to the boss fight location in Ruin as well, it is still intact. That means it never happened. However, the main problem is still there. The Mimic has not been deactivated, thus the major problem has not been dealt with yet. That is how the DLC could happen in the first place. Vanessa and Gregory decided to stop the Mimic by sealing it up. Proof that this happened is that a backpack with Gregory's name written on it is still there, and he also accidentally left a walkie-talkie behind, which the Mimic later uses to its advantage. Gregory lures the Mimic to this place, Vanessa seals the entrance with concrete with the forklift, and Gregory barely makes it out through the vent. There is even a handprint on there that confirms it. Gregory is the one that sealed up the Mimic, so of course it's going to imitate Gregory. It also knows about his past and his friend Cassie. It is also aware of the security system, and it plays the camera footage in the AR world that shows Gregory exploring the Pizzaplex in the main game. Remember being terrified by MXES? Forget that. He's actually the good guy here and the mechanism to keep anyone away from the Mimic. Unfortunately, the Mimic succeeds with trolling Cassie throughout the whole game, who deactivates all the security nodes, and finally MXES itself. Ruin's endings. The Brazil ending shows Cassie escaping into a made-up reality, so she wouldn't have to worry about what's happening right now. This is called the Brazil ending in the game files because it's a reference to the sci-fi fantasy movie with the same name made in 1985. It's about a man who escapes his monotonous life through daydreams while he's actually trapped in a torture chair. The ending with the Mimic in the lion costume is achieved by zooming out on a few camera systems and spotting the hidden cameras. These are used to open a set of doors for a modified chase scene. After Cassie goes through the last door frame, the door shuts permanently. The Mimic goes back for no reason at all, and then you press the red button. The Mimic hits the glass while it's trying to escape the arm that ends up shutting it down. If this was the canon ending, literally nothing would happen afterwards. Nothing. The canon ending can only be, you guessed it, the falling elevator ending. The Mimic intercepts Gregory's signal right after he said, "Now it's free." Then the Mimic says, "But we can't risk being followed. I'm sorry," and lets the elevator fall. The high-pitched feedback should be audible in the beginning and in the end, but not after Gregory said, "Now it's free," which is highly illogical. I do not think that Gregory has a make elevator fall button, and it honestly wouldn't really make sense to let Cassie die just because they will be followed by the Mimic. The Mimic, this absolute bastard of a creature, manipulated the elevator to make it fall freely. Another reason is that at the end of the credits, it turns out that Roxy is still alive and thriving. She says, "Cassie," to check if she's still okay and alive. This absolutely confirms to me that this is the true ending, since the Cassie forces the developers to make another DLC, or most probably a completely different game. Let me know if you want to know anything else about this game in the comments right now. And please subscribe. This was a shit ton of work.